Thank you for joining us for the Into Me I See podcast, brought to you by RPI Consultants. I am your host, Justin Braun. This is the podcast where we connect to answer a simple and compelling question. How can we work to improve professional health, performance, vitality, and outcomes by focusing on the quality of our relationships? Welcome back to Into Me I See. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Justin Braun, and today we're joined by Stephanie Marquez, one of our colleagues here at RPI. Stephanie is going to talk about mentorship because mentorship matters. We're going to trace that silver lining that connects mentorship to the consulting life. Stephanie Marquez is a senior supply chain management consultant here at RPI. And since joining RPI in July of 2019, Stephanie has quickly proven herself to be not only a great consultant, but also a valued leader on our team, taking on some of the most challenging work in the Infor Cloud Suite project space and showing others the ropes along the way. She's here to talk about mentorship, why it matters, how you know when it's right, and how it really comes down to helping others see the light inside of themselves. Stephanie is also a member of the RPI Real Colors facilitator team. Very happy to work with Stephanie in that capacity. She brings and represents that noble and distinguished gold energy on the Real Colors spectrum. Gold energy is about being of service, helping others. Our golds tend to be dependable, neatly organized, punctual, and caring. All words that define Stephanie quite well. I think when Hafiz talked about the way the sun loves the earth, he was talking about its radiant golden energy. Welcome to the show, Stephanie. Always a pleasure to get to work with you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here and just honored to be participating in the Into Me I See podcast with you. So I appreciate your asking me to join.
Indeed. This isn't your first podcast.
No, it is not. This is actually my second one. So yeah, it's just a fun side project that we get to do and connect with one another in a different capacity than just our day-to-day. So good time.
Indeed. You're also a prolific writer on your LinkedIn profile. And I just want to say it's been a real pleasure, Stephanie, watching you come on board here. You know, you're approaching 5 years, half a decade. And it's been a real pleasure watching you grow, you know, not only, you know, on the core metrics of a consultant success path like utilization, but also developing others, taking on a resource development manager role, and also just putting your energy out there and being a leader, even when you're not called to be, you know, just in your own time, lighten up your LinkedIn page with thoughts. And it's, I know we're going to have a great show today. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we start with the art. I'd like to invite you to frame our episode and our topic and what's on your heart with a reflection.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly. So kind of going into this, I thought of a number of different things and really two reflections stood out to me. The first one being a mentor is someone who allows you to see the hope inside yourself, spoken by the lovely Oprah Winfrey. And then additionally, I was kind of thumbing through some of my own personal items, of which is a law of attractions journal that I was gifted a couple of years ago by a friend of mine. And on the first page of the journal, it asks you to create kind of a mission statement for yourself. And now I have not looked at this since like 2018. And so when I saw it in kind of preparation for our conversation today, I thought it was really fitting. And so the mission statement I wrote for myself was, I want to positively impact the lives of those around me through love and empathy. And so I think really kind of taking those two reflections into consideration will hopefully set the stage for a great conversation today.
What a gift. So agreeing to be on the show and make this contribution led you to something you wrote in a personal law of attraction journal in 2018 before you started at RPI.
Yep.
I love it when that happens. And I don't do a lot of journaling, but that's one of its greatest gifts is you go back to a place that you were in long ago that you'd kind of like specifically forgotten about, but the truth is still there. And you kind of rediscover that, whatever that was, that intuition, that spark that made it to the page. And you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
What a gift. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't realize it worked out that way. So what a perfect tee up for the first question. I'd like
Yeah.
to invite you to talk about, some of the most meaningful and valuable professional outcomes you've achieved in your career so far, and maybe, invite our listeners to connect that to what you just said about positively impacting the lives of those around you through love and empathy.
Yeah, so I've had a professional career since about 2003, but again, just in reflection and preparation for our conversation today, I was really brought back to about 6, 7 years ago. I was invited to attend a business trip with a relative of mine who happens to be incredibly successful. She's a global leader for HR services for one of the big four. And so I've always admired her success throughout the years, and I never really realized how much I wanted to emulate that success. And so one evening on this trip, we were in London and we were at this, cheeky little pub having dinner. And she just was like, tell me about work, tell me how things are going. And I think oftentimes when we have those conversations with people, we don't really get much past that surface level. And so through that conversation, she really kind of dug into, where I was at. And I certainly didn't have much knowledge of what she did in participation with her organization. And at the time, I was working for a very small company, which was great. I was able to gain a lot of diverse experience, wearing multiple hats and really functioning in a multitude of different roles. But she started to ask me questions of how I saw myself continuing to grow. Was I satisfied with my role? Where did I see myself long term with this organization? And honestly, I don't think I had ever really given it much thought before that conversation. And so really that one conversation just kind of left really an imprint on my heart. And so after that trip, I started really doing a lot of self-evaluation and reflection. Really, what did I want? What did I want for myself? What did I want from myself? And so, looking back, it's like hindsight's always 2020. I can without a doubt say that conversation was definitely a catalyst for helping me get to where I am today. And when you think about time, 6, 7 years ago it's really not a long time. But since then, and since that conversation, I completely changed industries. I got myself into working in healthcare and supply chain management. I made the decision to go back to school. I got my executive MBA and ultimately, found myself here at RPI. So, looking back at my 2016 self, probably never would have imagined that I would be able to accomplish all of those things in a short amount of time simply by having one very candid, open conversation with someone who was willing to just be authentic and honest with me, sharing their own experience and what they've learned along the way, and kind of giving me a little bit of their wisdom.
So it sounds like that intimacy conversation at the cheeky little pub in London kind of maybe validated or unlocked a knowing that you were ready for bigger and better things to impact more lives.
Absolutely. Yep.
And it's one thing to kind of think that about yourself or know that, but when that's held up in the mirror of a relationship, especially with a mentor, someone that you look up to, someone who's a leader in a big four, they got a big deal job, and somebody that you admire and look up to and willing to allow yourself to be mentored by.
Mm-hmm.
When you see that reflection in that mirror, it's powerful and it's meaningful.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Share with us some of the things that you've achieved, some of the professional outcomes that you celebrate having, since doubling down on that journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think certainly coming here and working with our team at RPI has been one of the biggest accomplishments for myself. And the only way that I can describe it is that for the first time in my adult life, I genuinely feel as if I'm on the path that I was always meant to be on. And it's hard to articulate that feeling, but it's just kind of like, I just knew. And I've been really open and honest with my leadership here of my desire to want to continue to grow and develop, and how can I do that within our organization. And, I feel very fortunate to have received a significant amount of support and understanding from our leadership, direct leadership, partnership, and being able to be involved in things such as this. I try to look at everything that we do as an opportunity to learn something about myself, to grow, just to really kind of branch out, if you will. So I'm always very eager to participate in any different avenue. You mentioned Real Colors earlier. I love being a part of the Real Colors team. It just allows us an opportunity to connect with people outside of our project teams. Doing things such as like our boot camp trainings. It's just a different vibe and a different feel. And so I think it's hard to just kind of identify a handful of things. I really think everything has been monumentous in my journey to getting me where I am today.
Hearing you talk literally just put like tingles in the bottom of my spine. I guess that's the love and empathy part, back to the law of attraction. So thanks for being real. I know what you're talking about. Leadership is relational. It's not transactional. That's one of the themes that's continuing to present itself on this show. I guess this is a show on this little project. Let's talk about leadership a little more specifically, because that shines through a lot in what we do. Obviously, we're consultants. You don't hire a consultant to remain the same, right? You hire a consultant to be led to a better transformative outcome. So also true in mentorship. I'd like for you to talk a little bit about, like, again, Sammy Hagar's lyric is also a recurring theme on this show. How does it feel when it's love? But how do you recognize and relate to leadership? That's the question.
So I think that there are lots of different ways to recognize and relate to leadership. But for me specifically, empathy and emotional intelligence is really kind of one of those that just stand out and more or less, for lack of better phrasing, speaks to me. I feel like leaders that exude those types of qualities, and in my experience, have been better able to connect with my needs as an employee or needs of other team members and coworkers. I definitely think that those leaders, again, who are empathetic and really kind of lead with a high level of emotional intelligence, they understand how to best tap into the strengths of the people on their team. So we all have weaknesses. We all know that. But I think those types of leaders do a really great job of just elevating your strengths. And whether that be, with a project team or just kind of pairing us up in partnership, because oftentimes I don't think that we can really truly see our strengths within ourselves. We're always very critical of ourselves. We're our own worst critic. But when somebody else can see that, to me, I feel like it's definitely a gift that they've given to me in order to be able to make me realize through their leadership, through their emotional intelligence, through them being an empathetic individual and really kind of in touch with what it is that I need. I'm like, oh, I am pretty good at that, and sometimes it takes time to find that. So I think it definitely fosters an environment that's just full of support, where ultimately people feel valued, they feel understood. And I'll definitely say I experienced that here pretty much right away. But specifically, I was working on a project that we were getting ready to go live. I was juggling a lot of different things, and it happened to be right when my kids were getting ready to start school. And so I was traveling for the go live, trying to make sure that they were situated for the start of school. And two people on my project team at separate times had said, "Hey, are you okay? You don't seem like yourself today. Is there something bothering you? Is there something I can help you with?" And aside from, the high energy of a go live, I said, "You know what? I really feel like I'm failing right now as a mom." And, "Well, what do you mean?" And so they opened the door and gave me an opportunity to say, "I'm trying to prepare for this, but I need to be focused on this project." And both individuals, again, at separate times, said, "Okay, after this call at this time, we got you. I want you to log off. I need you to take care of your kids. I need you to take care of your family, make sure that they're ready to go for the start of school tomorrow." And those two people just have that level of emotional intelligence that I think we often take for granted or we don't recognize. And, because of that, I felt confident that I could turn off work for the rest of the day and go finish up the last minute school shopping or the lunch supplies or whatever I needed for the rest of the day. So
And
there's
they
a lot
picked
of
up the
different
slack.
things.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
there was a lot of good stuff in there, Stephanie. And I have to say, I want to kind of contextualize and color in some of the energy you're sharing. It's like, I just feel Dan Frugio's presence kind of coming through and what you're talking about. And, for those that aren't aware, right? Like all the members of your supply chain team that are listening to this are going to be like, yeah, Dan. But, Dan runs the supply chain management team, and I think it really exemplifies and all those qualities that you talked about emotional intelligence and connection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool to see that leadership impacting you directly and those
Mm-hmm.
around you, so that when you're in that critical moment, someone's there to kind of pick you up. And that's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I remember one of my favorite go live stories. Everybody's got their favorite go live story, right? It was a long time ago. It was like 2003 or something. It was that critical moment, where the local system supply chain team really finally had to sort of take the medicine of like, all right, this is actually happening. It was that critical moment. We were going into a really stressful call, and I was kind of at the right hand of that project supply chain lead for the client. I was kind of the consultant, and I could just tell he didn't know how it was going to go. He was terribly stressed. And on the way to that meeting, I just took a little detour and went to the Gatorade machine and put 75 cents in and got him a can of Gatorade. And as we were punching in the teleconference numbers into the big, telecom phone or whatever, and we were kind of going through that pre-meeting ritual, I just slid the Gatorade across the table to him, and I just like watched him like light up, and he killed it in that meeting. And I didn't intend for it to go that way, but it made a huge impression on me. I was just thirsty, and I decided to get him one while I was there, but it worked out really good. So, again, it's that empathy and that love that you talked about with your law of attraction. It's flowing in. So yeah, thank you for that. Mentorship matters. I want to talk a little bit about what's worked for you and what advice you would give to someone looking to optimize the relationship to achieve professional outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And mentorship definitely matters. Looking back on my career, I can see how the mentors that I've been fortunate to connect with and what they've contributed to me professionally has evolved and grown as I have. So I don't have the same mentor, that I had starting out my professional career in 2003. But I think it's something to remember that as we grow, it's okay for those folks to change. I feel I've been very fortunate in my mentor-mentee experience. Some have been in an official form where I've worked for an organization where you're kind of assigned a mentor or assigned a mentee. But if I'm being honest, most of which have been in that unofficial, type capacity. And so what I mean by that is it's usually those people that you work with every single day that you just naturally gravitate to. Maybe it's folks with similar personalities or qualities. You gave me props for being that gold representative, in their real colors standards. But if I look at my life right now and who I consider to be my mentor, we just click. And I think one of the things that's really important is if you have someone in your life like that professionally, and you're easily able to connect with them and have conversations, having the courage to say will you be my unofficial mentor? I guarantee those people are going to say yes. Because if you're feeling connected, chances are they're feeling just the same. And so really stepping out kind of in faith that they're going to be able to recognize that relationship that you've developed and built over, whatever that time might be. I think it's a matter of asking yourself, what do you want to achieve from this relationship? What do you want to accomplish? Is there someone in your life that has qualities or has had a professional path that you want for yourself? And it's really surrounding yourself, with those people. And I think if we all kind of stopped and asked ourselves, we could probably quickly identify, someone who kind of fits in that. I think too, something that's important to remember is that in that type of relationship, in that type of dynamic, in my experience, it's always give and take. So while I may have been a mentor to someone in the past, or I'm a mentor to someone currently, I can assure you that I have learned just as much from the person that I'm, mentoring as I did or have when I've been in that mentee capacity. So it's not just a one-way type of relationship. It's definitely, you can learn from those regardless of what that relationship
Mhm.
status is.
Thank you for bringing that into the conversation. That's another recurring soundbite of this show and kind of the RPI experience is we're all leaders and we all get that
Hmm.
opportunity to lead and mentor or servant leadership with our clients, with each
Yep.
other. And it is a give and take, this mentor relationship that we're focused on. I'd like to go a little bit further into that and invite you to talk
Hmm.
about the quality of either the give or the take, and
Hmm.
or conversely, maybe start with the opposite. How do you know
Hmm.
if you're involved in in something that doesn't click or just kind of feels shitty? Like how does
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all probably had an experience like that where, you are working on a team and your leader and yourself, maybe you just don't jive. And I think, the question is, are they caring about their people, right? Are they caring about the work? And probably the answer is pretty clear. And so when you experience things like that, I've witnessed people who are incredibly talented, really bright, just kind of disconnect and disengage. And it's sad because I think, talent is so incredibly valuable to any organization. And so when that happens, it's almost as if it's too late, if it's gotten to that point where they just are going through the motions and they've lost that passion or that spark for what it is that they're doing. I don't know, I think it's really sad. But on the flip side of that, when you have inspiring relationships or leadership or mentorship, I think those are the people that continue to help keep us plugged in and engaged. And, I mentioned earlier, a great leader or an empathetic or emotionally intelligent leader is really great at helping us draw out our own strengths. And so through that, you see an increase of engagement. You see, those people are positive. They're the light in your day sometimes. And so I think it goes both internally, but also too, we're in the business of consulting, right? We're working with our clients day in and day out. And so I think we can also see those types of relationships and dynamic with the clients that we work with. And
Yeah.
how I think measuring that can be kind of difficult, but a couple of things that I thought about kind of in reflection is, am I working with people who are authentic, and just carry a level of integrity and honesty and are transparent. And so in those mentor kind of mentee servant leader relationships, sometimes there are difficult conversations, whether it's, a constructive feedback opportunity, right? It's not a problem, it's just an opportunity to get better. And you want to be surrounded with people who are working to continue to elevate you, to lift you up and to bring out, the greatness or all of those strengths that we've got inside.
I like what you said earlier, Stephanie, about how, when you go about sourcing your mentors, that can be a function of time. And you
Hmm.
might, your needs as a mentor or someone you're capable of mentoring will evolve as you evolve.
Hmm.
And I think that's true in the consulting relationship too. I mean, I have had and felt that trusted advisor special partnership with clients that you just feel
Hmm.
like you're getting great work done. It clicks, like you said, like things are just happening both ways. And there's that
Hmm.
mutual shared interest in each other's outcomes. And it's beautiful. I've had the other side too, right? Where it's like you're pulling teeth and leading the horse to water, or you can just tell that your words aren't clicking with them.
Right.
And if I'm honest, when I look at the long arc of my career as a consultant, the ones I'm most proud of are the ones that have changed and evolved from the latter to the former. right?
Yep.
From somebody
Yep.
that maybe was a little standoffish or distrusting, or it wasn't clicking. I hear a lot of hope in your message of like, stick to it,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't require judgment. If it doesn't click, that's okay. Everyone has different
Right.
learning styles and different needs. And that's one of the beauties of being on a team that brings, such a diversity of talent and relationships, is if you're not clicking with your RPI project manager or a lead, I guarantee there's someone else on the team that can give you the service you need. And we leverage that amongst ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to kind of highlight that and put that in the consulting framework, because that really spoke to me hearing you say that. Well, a little off script there, but yeah. So did you have more you wanted to talk about in that give and take, or knowing when it clicks, or maybe you mentioned servant leadership, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the thread that connects the title of our show, Mentorship Matters, mentorship relationships, to our vocation of consulting. I think in both relationships, there's a willingness to be a servant leader.
Yep.
Expecting nothing in return, like Hafiz talking about the sun. Would you be willing to explore that thread a little bit with us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we think about mentorship and mentee, it's just very closely related to that servant leadership aspect. And so for anyone who's unfamiliar, Robert Greenleaf really started this servant leadership movement back in the 70s. It said something to the effect of, don't quote me, but it's like, all great leaders originate as serving others. And so I think that they're just both so absolutely similar. A mentor or someone who's in a leadership capacity, or both coming from an advisory role, right? We're working towards supporting, providing people with knowledge. You know, is this someone from a leadership capacity, even if it's internally a teammate or a client to consultant relationship? Who's that person that's like willing to get into the trenches with you, alongside of you when things get, challenging, because they will and they do. And I think that those leaders definitely play an active role in supporting everyone around them. And like you said earlier, you said anyone can be leaders, and I absolutely just want to kind of drive that home, because any person, whether you have the title or not, you have the capacity, and you are, even sometimes unknowingly, a leader. And it's not defined by the people that report to you, right? And I think it's just, I feel really fortunate that I've been able to experience that along my journey and along my path, both with clients and with fellow teammates.
Right on, right on. There's an excellent little essay in one of his books on leadership by Ari Weinswig, and he talks about servant leadership. And I believe it's "We're All Leaders" is the title of that particular essay. And he uses the busboy in one of his restaurants, challenging his authority as the CEO of this amazing community of businesses, kind of to prove the point, that yeah, we all have that opportunity, and it's really a
Yep.
question of tapping into that light or that hope inside. Sometimes it requires permission to do that from a mentor.
Absolutely. Yep.
Nice. This is going great. You having a good time?
I am having a good time. It's nice just to talk about things that you're passionate about.
This is a good one. Consulting. Do consultants have all the answers?
I wish we did. and honestly, I think, because I'm, like you said, almost a half a decade into my consulting journey, I wish that was something that I learned to accept about myself a long time ago, that I don't have all of the answers, and it's okay to not have all of the answers. And when you have those moments where you're engaged with a client and they stump you, because it happens, exercising grace to yourself in that moment, and just recognizing, what, I really don't know, but I'm gonna find out, and we're gonna work on it together, and we'll come to a resolution or a solution, whatever it might be. And I think, again, just kind of reflecting back, I experienced that, even prior to coming to consulting. I feel really fortunate that I was able to engage with RPI as a client prior to joining the pirate ship. And I was working for an organization, and we were engaged in kind of a cleanup project within supply chain. And we were working with Stephanie Kowal, and she was doing some training in our organization. And
There's another?
Yeah, yeah.
There's two supply chain Stephanies at RPI. All right, proceed.
Multiple. Yeah, exactly. So as I'm a strong gold, I'm also a very strong green in my personality. So I'm always asking questions. I'm always wanting to know the why, the how, really kind of making sure that I understand why it is we're doing what we're doing, not just because a script told me to do so or someone said, hey, do it this way. But she was facilitating this training class, and she was just so graceful because I was just slamming her with questions one after another. And she answered everything that she could. But there was one where I kind of stumped her with my question. And it was maybe in the middle of our training class. And she said, let's kind of come back to this at the end. So we parked it. And once we finished the class, she asked me just to kind of hang out. And there was only like maybe 5 or 6 of us. So we hung out in this training room, and she was like, you know what, I don't know how, I'm not really sure, but can we work on this together? Like, you're asking all of the right questions. I can see that it's really important to you to troubleshoot and to problem solve. And, it gave us an opportunity to collaborate together on coming up with a resolution. So, we sat in that training room, kind of dug in for a little bit. She had some homework to do. I had some homework to do. And, we came back and were able to answer. It was something about PO13 vendor items. I just remember that painstaking mess that it caused us on that client side. But I think it just kind of set the tone for the rest of that engagement. So that one experience where she and I were in this kind of collaborative space, in the future, when there were things that I was unsure of, I felt empowered as the client to say, okay, let me just try to figure this out. Like, I already knew that I could because of that experience and because of that guidance, right? And that relationship, and being empowered by someone who wasn't even in my organization to dig in and figure it out. And it just led to other opportunity where I would maybe take something so far and say, okay, I think I'm almost there, but can you just help me kind of talk this out? And it just left such a lasting impression, and certainly fostered that relationship as well.
That is such a diamond of knowledge and wisdom right there. It's like I can get a sense for that window or that door opening of she's the consultant, she's in the room, you're peppering her with questions. It's very Q&A transactional. And then you get to that stumper, and that's the door, right? And she stepped through that door where the leadership becomes relational. And she sat down with you, and it was in that relationship that she unlocked your power. Which is the end goal of any consultant, right? Is to affect change, lasting change that's there when we're gone. And that's the magic. Beautiful. More magic, please. Are there any on-topic highlights that you'd like to share with anyone in our audience about, how the RPI experience is working for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I, kind of shared a story about emotional intelligence. And it's funny that you picked up that I was referring to Dan, because he was one of those two people. But I think all throughout my journey, there has been examples of that, but some specifically that I will take with me wherever I go, whatever that kind of future leads. Coming into consulting, you don't know what you don't know. And coming from a client side, definitely thinking, oh, I know this system, but you don't really, because you only know it to the capacity of which your organization is using it. But I was working on a pretty large and my first Cloud Suite implementation project. And so there were so many firsts as a consultant for me on that project. It was one of the first times that I was leading a series of modules that I felt confident in, but with, the client side, with these, questions that maybe I didn't know the answers to and I needed to figure out. There was definitely the first of large mass data conversions. In my previous life working in supply chain, we had done little ones where we were maybe doing an acquisition and we were just focused on bringing on an item master, but we're talking all the data. And so I definitely stumbled throughout the course of that and learned so much from start to finish. But I came into that project after it already had initiated. So I was brought in where there were already existing relationships. And that specific project team was just, honest to God, just rock stars. And we were doing a data conversion. I believe it was in preparation for SIT 2. So I'd already done one and failed miserably. And so I had all these lessons learned and I kind of had a strategy for myself of how I was going to do it better this time. And it came to be my turn. And
sorry to interrupt, but just for
no,
those
you're
keeping
fine.
score at home, this is pre-DMF era, right? This is
Yes.
custom tooling. This is,
yeah,
this is brutal. Okay, go ahead.
This is lots of spreadsheets, lots of numbers, lots of cross-eyed and late nights. But yeah, so, you know, when you're doing the conversion process, it's kind of like a relay race, like Pony Express comes to mind. You're passing the baton to the next person once you've completed your leg of the race.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of people behind me waiting for me to pass the baton to them. And I was also in the process of moving. So my kids and my dog and I were set up in a hotel and I'm, you know, on the hotel Wi-Fi, you know, doing our data conversions. And I was essentially spinning my wheels. And our project manager, program lead, I'm not sure what the title of capacity was at the time, but Amanda Gibson and our principal tech consultant, Jeremy Stoltzfus, both of them, at the same time, tell us how we can help you. What can we do? And I wasn't even really sure what they could do, but it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I was so close to finishing, but I wasn't quite there yet. And so both of them got on a call with me. We figured out what the issue was. Jeremy was like, I got it. We're going to write a flow real quick. We're going to fix these errors this way. And we should be done, you know, within an hour. And it was like, that to me was truly servant leadership, like true empathy, true roll up the sleeves, get in, you know, the dirt with me and figure it out. And we did, the three of us figured it out. And, you know, Amanda at the time would say things like, I'm not really sure how I can help. And I'm like, you just being here on this call is more help than you could ever imagine, because it was just that level of compassion and feeling like I'm being seen, right? Someone is seeing that I'm struggling and they're willing to offer their support. There wasn't maybe anything that she could say, here's the answer for it, but it didn't matter. And so it was like that experience, it just made me stronger as an individual. It also reinforced that it's absolutely okay to raise the flag and ask for help when you need it, because nobody wants you to sit and spin your wheels and struggle. That's not what this is about. But every time after that, we all just got so much better. And so by the time it was, you know, we were bringing that client live, it was like a refined, well-oiled machine, and we just were on it. And it was, honest to God, from, you know, just again, being a newer consultant, experiencing a lot of firsts, it's like that I will just carry with me, because there will be people that get into a situation like that with their own projects, or could be anything. And knowing that there are people that are willing to just sit with you sometimes, it just makes a world of difference.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's it. I mean, that's why we invest in our relationships. We have holiday parties and do things like real colors, so that genuine care and concern, it just can't be there if you don't know the other person. And you know, you can only imagine how that situation in the hotel room might have gone if you got the old, like, you know, deadline's 12 o'clock, you better be out in 90 minutes, figure it out, click. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You know, that would send you spinning into a world of self-doubt. And instead it was really empowering to just have that partnership and that sense of belonging to pull you through.
Yep, absolutely.
Whew. 2 more questions.
Yeah, let's do
enjoy
it.
them while they last. What are your hopes for the future, Stephanie? And how does servant leadership play into that?
Yeah, so thinking back on my career, I think I have a pretty humbling beginning. And I think I mentioned this kind of earlier, but for a long time, I just felt like I was wandering aimlessly and, not realizing it until I came to RPI that I'm on the right path. I am where I need to be. But along the way, I've had these amazing people that have contributed to that, right? And so kind of thinking back to my personal mission statement from 5 years ago of wanting to leave a positive impact to other people through love and empathy, like that's what my hope is for the future, that I can be as positive of a contributor to other people as I've been fortunate enough to receive. It's like the whole pay it forward, sentiment. But when you see it in action, it takes on a completely different meaning when you've experienced it and you can pass, that love on to somebody else. So, it's my hopes for my future, definitely continued growth. I really love what I do. I love the clients that we work with, and I think our teams are amazing. When I first came to RPI, kept thinking to myself, oh, this is too good to be true. And it's like every single person, we practice what we preach. And that just makes so much difference in building or fueling your passion and keeping that kind of fire ignited. And so, it's just really hoping that I can do that for other people as folks have done for me.
That's a beautiful vision, and I'm looking forward to helping manifest that in our shared experience here.
Yes.
I've been told that there are at least 40 clients out there going live this summer 2023, on the Cloud Suite multi-tenant, latest and greatest footprint of the Infor applications. And what that means is that what we anticipate is that those clients will open a new market for RPI, because a lot of the system integrators, if you will, the Deloittes and even Infor consulting services, they'll take the big project to get you up and running, but those post-live phase 2 optimization projects tend to, that's a market that we are very well positioned for, and always have been from our humble beginnings when there were just 10 of us doing procure to pay optimization. We've always, helped clients that are alive and established extend and optimize their footprint. So, for all of our listeners out there that are just stoked to work with someone of your caliber and your leadership that understands relationships the way you do, what are some areas of the application that you're really comfortable in, or some post-live optimization initiatives that you'd be willing to talk to some of our clients about?
Oh, I love contract management. It makes me happy. It's my home. And it's one of those modules within the application that a lot of our clients may be transitioning from earlier versions of Lawson don't have a lot of experience or exposure with. And every single implementation that I've done, I've learned so much about what that tool has to offer to clients, and honest to God, making their lives better in the way of, contract life cycle. So I'm definitely passionate about that, and excited to be able to help folks get, those kind of phase 2 optimizations like you've described. So that's where my passion and my heart lives, kind of in a nerdy, geeky way, but it just is. It can offer so much. And we had talked earlier, you had mentioned something about when you kind of just see it click with the clients.
Yeah.
And
Contract
that's
management
one
is one of those.
area.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so I have definitely experienced people that have been so nervous to implement it, and even to kind of step out of just that normal, I just need my pricing agreement here. And maybe they kind of sprinkle in, I don't know, DocuSign contract, signature process. And it's like those things that are small wins. And when you see it click for them, you're like, all right, this is cool. This is cool. You see their confidence increase over time. Yeah, I know that was a rabbit hole, but I appreciate that when that happens.
Full on. Again, back to the leadership being relational, not transactional. You know, a lot of people, contract management stops and ends with getting the pricing in the system. So you order this stuff at the right price. And that's probably the most important aspect of contract management.
Yep.
But when you're willing to kind of zoom out and look at the full function process, how to improve people's lives, how to, you know, really truly optimize with the technology, their supplier relationships and everything under that.
Yep.
Cool. Those are exciting conversations. And obviously people can reach you by emailing you at smarquez@rpic.com. I mentioned your prolific LinkedIn page earlier. So check. Final question. My favorite being a Real Colors Blue and all about the harmonies. We'd like to invite you to send us out on a song. If you could make a contribution to the evolving Spotify playlist titled Into Me I See. And if you'd like, tell us why.
Yeah, absolutely. So I gotta say, I had some of the folks that did this podcast before me, they had some stellar recommendations where I was intimidated. I was like, oh man, I got to come up with something really good. And I thought, no, I just need to come up with something that speaks to me. And so I really thought about this one, but there is a song that doesn't matter where I'm at in my day or my personal life, if there are things going on. Just Fine by Mary J. Blige is that song that just takes you from feeling crummy to just absolutely larger than life. And, you know, just kind of talking about within the song, no matter where we are, what we've gone through, what we're gonna go through, that we're all gonna be okay. And it's hard to remember that sometimes, you know, whatever your personal circumstances might be or professional circumstances, just knowing that is huge. And I mentioned earlier, there have been times where I feel like I'm failing miserably at some aspect of a role that I play within my life, whether that's, you know, the consultant role, the sister, the mother, friend, whatever it might be. But I swear that every single time I just get in my car and I crank that song so loud, it just, I don't know, it's freeing. It like makes me feel like nothing other than what she's singing in that moment matters, because we're all going to come out on the other side. We always do. We're going to come out better, stronger, wiser. So that's that for me, that does it. That song every time.
What a beauty. That's a good one. That just made song number 15 on the list. I did it. I do it in real time as we
awesome.
Yeah, so that was cool. And I look forward to, again, I wish I could play it as like the outro of this episode, but I'd have to call Mary J, and she's not in my Rolodex yet. Well, awesome verse, Stephanie. That was a total pleasure. Look at that. We're right on time. And so grateful for your contribution. And thanks for joining us today.
I really appreciate you having me here. I've had a blast chatting with you, preparing, and just having this kind of open conversation today. So thank you for thinking of me. And I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully our listeners can connect with something that, you know, we've talked about today. So I'm excited.
How could they not? There's so much goodness in there. So good deal. I look forward to working with you in July too for our next Real Colors event.
Absolutely. Yes. Look forward to it.
All right. Have fun out there. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you much. I'll see you later.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us today and listening to the whole episode. We hope you've enjoyed it. Special thanks goes out to RPI's amazing marketing team, Michaela, Logan, Chris, Paul, and others to come for collaborating on this project and connecting it to the RPI experience. If you think you might want to come work for RPI or let RPI come work for you, you can find us at rpic.com. That's Roger Peter Indigo Charlie.com. If you want to learn more about this show, watch past episodes, or sign up to be a guest, just add /IntoMeIC to that rpic.com URL. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it real, take care of yourselves, and take care of each other. Thank you very much.